Warm good morning to all of you. And we welcome you all for the third day of KFRI Talk series in connection with the Golden Jubilee celebration of STEP. Today, we have scheduled 3 talks of diverse topics, starting from the talk of Dr. Chandrashekara, who was a retired senior principal scientist from KFRI and who is still attached to KFRI in different programs. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Chandrashekara. He is hailing from Uchengi village, Hassan district, Karnataka, and obtained his master's degree in botany from Mysore University and doctoral degree from JNU Delhi. And he is the student of one of the doyens in ecology, Professor P.S. Ramakrishnan sir. And he joined in Kerala Forest Research in 1992 as scientist and retired after superannuation from here in 2020. His areas specialization are forest ecology and agroforestry, and he has worked on biodiversity assessment, disturbance ecology in forest, indigenous ecological knowledge, and traditional knowledge and practices, which are related to tropical forest and biodiversity conservation and agroforestry systems. Dr. Chandrashekara has published more than 70 research papers in leading journals, including Forest Ecology and Management, and he has published 45 technical reports during his career and authored 3 books and guided several students for PhD and PG, and I'm lucky to be one of them. His outstanding and visible contribution includes the Bioresource Natural Park in KFRI Sub-Center campus. This park is a unique theme park in India with a large collection of plants, particularly rare and endangered species, and the state's level herbal garden at Nilampur, established under the guidance of Dr. Chandrashekara, has been recognized as the most successful funded project by National Medicinal Plant Board, Government of India. After his retirement, Dr. Chandrashekara is serving as an expert advisor for the Regional Facilitation Center of National Medicinal Plant Board at KFRI PG. With due respect, it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Srijit. Respected Director of KSCST Kerala Forest Research Institute, coordinator and organizers of this program, and all the participants. Good morning to all of you. And first, I thank Dr. T.V. Sajeev, who now is the Director in charge of KFRI, for giving me this opportunity to deliver a lecture on traditional wisdom for biodiversity conservation. Similarly, I thank Dr. Srijit for giving me an opportunity and also enthusing me to take a class on Jaiva Vaividya Samrakshanathil Paramparagata Arivugalude Pangu. So, in this presentation, what I am going to do is I will speak about what is biodiversity and importance of biodiversity, why our country is a biodiversity rich region, and despite heavy dependency on biodiversity, how our ancestors developed and used their wisdom for biodiversity conservation, and some examples for traditional wisdom for biodiversity conservation. And finally, I will discuss with you how we can contribute for both using and improving traditional practices of biodiversity conservation. As all of you know, space researchers or scientists mentioned that in our universe or Brahmandam, there are more than 1 septillion stars. That means 1 with 24 zeros of trait. Stars are there in this universe. And also we have a 2 followed by 23 zeros. That means 200 sextillion planets in this universe. And among them, our solar system with sun as the star, surrounded by planets, including Earth, is one system, solar system, or what we call Saura Mandalam. And here, Earth is very important planet because this has water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and other gases and minerals which can support living beings. So that means in the whole universe, particularly in solar system, the Earth is the only planet with living beings. And as you know, we have different kinds of plants: algae, fungi, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms. Then similarly, different kinds of animals. So it is estimated that more than 50 million species of plants and animals are there on this earth. And assemblage of these living beings together constitute biodiversity. This is a simple way of telling what is biodiversity. And one important thing is all these living beings are interconnected with each other, either directly or indirectly. And when we come to India, it is regarded as one of the mega diverse country with only about 2.4% of geographic area in the world, but with more than 9.13% of world's known plant diversity. You can see how many plants we are having in different groups like algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperm, and angiosperms. And one important thing you can see, endemic species, which I have given in the brackets. So that means about 26.9% of total algae are endemic to India. So like same way, we are having many endemic, more than 25% endemic species of bryophytes. And similarly, we have about 22.6% of total angiosperm diversity, which we can see in India. This is the reason why we are having so many plants and animals in our country. It is mainly because of diverse physical features and climatic conditions prevailing in our country. So for example, we are having wetlands and mangroves. We are having different kinds of forests, starting from shola forest, that means high altitude forest, then evergreen, semi-evergreen forest, deciduous forest, then grasslands, then we have deserts. So like this, we are having so different kinds of what you call it, geographic area or vegetation. So all of them together are contributing for rich biodiversity in our country. So and again they are contributing for human well-being. You can see that many plants we are using for our food, then medicine and other purposes. And India is also unique in terms of ethnic groups. Not only plants and animal diversity, even ethnic diversity is also high in India. You can see we are having more than 2,000 groups of ethnic communities in the country. And similarly, we are having different culture because each ethnic group may have its own culture. That means at least 2,000 different culture or cultural groups are there in our country. And again, our diversity is also reflected in dependence on plant. Say, for example, we are dependent on plants for food, fruits, medicinal plants, then even for fodder, green leaf manure, then fuel wood, and also even for our cultural activities. So this you know very well, a wall painting which is very common in Kerala. And for this wall painting, only plant products are used for drawing this kind of pictures. For example, Kaduka, terminal is used for plastering. Then what do you call Chunambu Valdi, it is used for plastering. The same way Nilamari, Iravi, and Yeldu, they are all used for getting different colors. So, and they use what you call Iyam Pullu for making brush. Same way for draw outline, they use bamboo. And for coating, coconut, coconut is used. The same way, Aryavepu is used for the glue from that bark is used. So like that, even for our traditional wall painting, plant products are used. So in India, we are highly dependent on plant resources, plant diversity, and its richness for what you call for our various purposes. And fortunately, this plant diversity, plant resources, and richness are continuing in our country. It is mainly because of our traditional society's view or wisdom. They recognized the interlinkages in well-being of human society and natural ecosystems. And also they know that we have to conserve our biodiversity for the future generation. So this, what you call mentality or wisdom of our ancestors are actually helping to conserve our diversity and sustainably utilizing them. So we can broadly identify 4 approaches to plant conservation in our Indian culture. The first one is a restraint in resource exploitation. That means too much of exploitation of resources is completely avoided in our Indian culture. So whatever is required only is used and not more than that. And there is an attitude of gratitude and respect for nature. So that is another thing. We regard our nature as God or goddess, and again we pray them, and we give do gratitude or importance for our nature. Then apart from formal protected areas, natural forest, we are having different management systems for conserving and protecting biodiversity outside the forested areas. I will give 1 or 2 examples here. Then there is a flow of knowledge and also plant species from one person to another person, or from one household to another household, or from one village to another village, or even at a larger landscape. This transfer of species and knowledge for growing such plant is also very important. So these approaches our ancestors have followed. That is why we are having still a rich biodiversity in our country. And in my presentation, I will try to give a few examples how our traditional people or our ancestors followed to conserve plants despite being they are using them. So here I broadly categorize conservation practices in 2 groups. One is related to forest ecosystem and another related to agro ecosystems. When we come to forest ecosystem, I give example our sacred groves. Sacred groves, you know, the kavu in Malayalam we call them kavu, and actually they represent forest areas protected by assigning them as the abode of God or goddesses. Most of you might have already seen there will be a temple in the center and surrounded by vegetation, particularly tree vegetation. So and again there may be a pond or and other facilities. So thereby it really looks like a forest with a temple, and this forest or vegetation is protected because people consider them as a part of the temple. So that is why they are protecting it, and they do not even, sometimes they don't even collect anything, including litter from, say, or fallen trees or fallen branches. They don't collect, so they leave it as such. So it can remain as a thick vegetation around a temple. So this system is there throughout India. It's not only in Kerala, but even other states in India. We can see here I have given a list. And as I already mentioned, in Kerala, we call them as kavus. And even in the central, even Bihar and Madhya Pradesh, they call sarnas. And even Rajasthan, even in desert area, we can see sacred groves in the name of Varan. And we have studied the richness of plant diversity in sacred groves. For example, we recorded about 54 tree species from 10-hectare land area, and that is in Iringol Kavu, near what you call Angamali. We have that temple, and it's about 10-hectare forested area, and we have recorded 54 species. Similarly, by studying 364 sacred groves covering about 1.44 square kilometer area, 721 angiosperm species have been recorded. And Dr. Warrior recorded about 1,028 studied 1,128 sacred groves in Alappuzha district, only one district, and recorded about 687 species. And in another study, I recorded about 670 species from 28 sacred groves. And in Meghalaya, Haridasan and Rao recorded about 50 rare and endangered plant species from a sacred grove. So similarly, you can see there are many rare and endemic species. So that means sacred groves are the treasure of rare and endemic species. And not only what you call higher plants, even low flowering, non-flowering plants are also rich in our sacred groves. So here is a example. So we can call sacred groves as gene pool gardens for in situ conservation of genetic resources. And apart from this kind of diversity, even we can see in our sacred groves many wild relatives of cultivars. So this is the best example, a traditional way of conservation of biodiversity by establishing and managing sacred groves. And these sacred groves are not only the centers of conservation of plant diversity, but also centers for culture and eco folklore. You can see there are many cultural activities related to sacred groves. So that means cultural services and biodiversity services are prevailing together in sacred groves. Now, let me come to agro ecosystems. So how our traditional systems are helping to conserve plant diversities. And you probably know one of the important tribal community in India is Mudwa tribes in Kerala. This is here they are having they are having an important kind of cultivation. It's a kind of mixed cultivation. That means in an area they sow the seeds of different crops like finger millet, pigeon pea, lady's finger, maize, chili, potato, like that, foxtail millet, like the different crops or the seeds of different crops are sowed together. Unlike our other areas where we grow only one. For example, paddy means only paddy we sow. But here it's not like that. So it's a kind of mixed cultivation practice. And this is very important because the diversity of cultivars, and in addition to this, they are also, apart from the, for example, in case of finger millet, there are many cultivars, and they, so even the seeds of such cultivars are also mixed and planted here. So diversity of cultivars and crops creates a situation where even one crop is attacked by pest or disease, others will survive. So that means this is the science behind cultivation of different crops together in the same area. So if one crop is get affected, the other will be there. So that means you will not lose any crop from the area. So I told you, even in finger millet, there are many cultivars. Like we have recorded about 9, about 12 cultivars, and farmers. These farmers can they recognize these cultivars based on morphological features. So they know which cultivar is suitable and which will be affected if there is heavy rain, which will not be affected when there is no rain. And if like that, all these ideas they're having, and we recorded them. So what is important here is more than one cultivar means it will minimize the crop. For example, untimely and heavy rain in the first week of December, just before harvesting, germination of grains of Putarishi and Aggro in the spike. That means this Aggro and Putarishi cultivars, they start germinating in the spike itself before harvesting. And so that means you will lose the crop. But when you mix all these together, even if these two get affected, others will survive. So there is no such problem for cultivars like matti. So this is the traditional wisdom of mixed cultivation system in this tribal community. Then most of you know that Kerala is known for its home gardens. This is a typical agroforestry system. We can say this as with 3 components. One is a tree component, the second one is crop component, and third one is animal husbandry. All are there. Agricultural system will be there, then tree crops will be there, and animal husbandry will be there. So this is, for example, here maybe in the center you can see a house, and it is surrounded by, it's just like in our Agro or forest here, surrounded by so many trees, so many species of trees, including coconut, arecanut, mango, some like that, even jackfruit, then nutmeg. Okay, then even sometimes bamboo you can see here. So like that, there may even many annual and biennial crops, climbers like pepper will be there, and animal husbandry, that is cattle, will be there. So this is a typical agroforestry system, well studied agroforestry system in the country or even the world, and it is recognized as the most sustainable land use practice for tropical region. Here, this is our traditional what you call a system of crop cultivation. Since it is a traditional system of crop cultivation, we can also see there are many traditional knowledge and practices for managing all these different crops. That means you can see this can be an integration of trees, bamboo, shrubs, climbers, and animals. How you can manage all these things, because each one requires different kind of situation or management, but our farmers are growing them together and still managing them. So that means we are having very rich traditional management practice or knowledge for managing all these plants together. I will explain some of them. And as I already mentioned, our home gardens are known as the most successful or very important land use system with because of various reasons. One is its species richness. Say, for example, in one home garden of 1 hectare area, I recorded 124 species with 60 species of trees. So the same way from 58 species, even in just in fence area, we recorded about 68 species. So like that, these are all rich in what you call plant diversity. So this plant diversity is managed very well in our home garden agroforest systems by our traditional farmers. And not only in India, even other outside India also, the importance of tropical Asian home gardens are identified mainly for its species richness. For example, just in 0.25 acre in size, 200 cultivated plants were recorded. And from 80 home gardens, 179 species were recorded. So like that, home gardens are actually experimental experimental areas for home gardeners or farmers. So they try to introduce many plants, and they many species, test them, and finally suitable species should be managed by the home gardeners. So that is why we can see rich plant diversity in home gardens. So as I already mentioned, traditional systems will always be associated with a wealth of traditional management and practices. So here I will give two examples. One is related to bamboo management in home garden agroforest system. The other one is tree management in agroforestry system. See, probably all of you know that one traditional method of soil management, soil and water management in our state, in Kerala, is green leaf mulching. That means we prune small branches of trees or leaf small branches of trees, and the foliage will be will be used. Fresh foliage will be used as mulching material, and particularly this we do it after rainy season. So this will actually support the plant in different ways. One is soil management is possible. That means nutrient will be enriched. The soil will be enriched with nutrient of this foliage. The second one is water will be conserved, and then the plant will absorb nutrients in a systematic or what you call synchronized way. So thereby their growth will also be better. So this is a traditional method of soil and water management, particularly in crop plants. We can see here, these are all foliage spread, foliage of different species spread under a coconut tree in what you call this basin type of pit is formed, and there we put green leaf materials, and over that we may put cow dung and soil like that. So this will remain, and gradually this will decompose and provide nutrient for plants. And for this, our farmers use different species. They don't use only one species. The foliage of only one species will not be used. Foliage of different species will be used. And the reason is because each foliage or each species may provide a particular nutrient in slightly larger quantity. For example, there is one plant called Macaranga peltata. Here I will give. This is this Macaranga peltata, or what we call vatta, and this is rich in potassium. So like that, different the leaves of different plants. For example, this irul is known for rich nitrogen content. So like that, different species are even erythrina. It is more. It will provide more nitrogen. So like that, different, instead of putting the leaves or foliage of only one species, it is better to put a foliage of different species, prune branches of different species, and then use them as a green leaf mulch. So this is our traditional way of soil and water management, and most of these trees will be there in a home garden system. That means it will be either planted or managed by home gardens in their home gardens. So that means they can easily prune and use them. So, and again, here is very important feature I want to mention here is how you can prune. Suppose if you prune completely, then what will happen? Sometimes the tree may die, but next year you may not get any leaf material or leaf mulching material. You don't get. If you don't mulch, if you don't prune it, then again you will not get any nutrient. Again, the tree will be there and it may affect other species. So pruning is very important, but intensity of pruning and frequency of pruning is very important. So intensity means whether you prune at minimum, maybe some 25% or 50% or sometimes 75 to 90% pruning. So what is actually the intensity? That is very important, and it may depend on it may vary from species to species. Some species may tolerate for heavy pruning, and some species may not tolerate for heavy pruning, and they may have to be pruned either at minimum level or moderate level. Similarly, some species can be pruned almost every year, either at a minimum level or moderate level, but some other species can be pruned only in alternate years. So that then the tree will also survive and then provide foliage or green leaf material after 2 years. So now we have studied the effect of different pruning frequency and intensity regimes on tree health and green leaf manure production. For example, that means we have scientifically validated whether our traditional farming practices are correct or not. And we understood that this mullu mudikku and vatta can be pruned every year at low intensity. That means about 50% intensity you can prune regularly. But other species like chadachi and kanikonna and matti can be pruned alternate years at a low intensity level. Then this mullu mudikku and vatta and can be pruned alternate years at a slightly high level. That means moderate level. So that means if you prune 75% of foliage this year, only after 2 years the pruning can be done for these two species. So wherever I put right mark, that means these are all known to our farmers, traditional farmers. This knowledge has come from them, and we one day scientifically validate that one. And finally, we conclude that pruning experiments indicated that the practices are scientifically valid with the exceptions. So here I put into mark. That means here what they say is not correct. Here also what they say is not correct. This may be because the flow of knowledge from generation to generation may get affected, may change. So that means it may not properly flow properly. There is no proper flow. So as a result of this kind of changes may happen, or knowledge is not properly transferred. So what we can generally say that our traditional practices are having scientific base. Then another important thing I want to mention here is, in agriculture land, as you know, we will have crops. That, for example, you may grow coconut, arecanut, mango, banana. So all these are all crops. That means planted by you. But apart from planted species, you can also see many non-crop plants. They naturally come, and they are also important sometimes in agriculture systems, because some are edible and they provide what you call additional food for people. That means for people's diet, they can also contribute, and they also provide essential vitamins and minerals, and they may play a role as famine and seasonal foods. And sometimes if you properly manage it, they can also become source of income. That is why Such non-crop edible plants are called as hidden harvest of agriculture. Say, probably you might have seen and you may think that they are all weeds, but actually they are not weeds in our agriculture systems. Like Uliya Kadaladi or Koli Walan, Panamgani, and Mullanchira, Katachira, Brahmi Cheppu. So they are all being used by our traditional farmers. So traditional families, they use them. Either their leaves or whole plant are used. And sometimes women may go for special collection or collection trip. So that means, okay, I will go and bring this plant and prepare some curry or chamandi like that. So they go and collect it and then use that. Similarly, there are Todama is there, Muttilila is there. So all these plants are seen in our agriculture land apart from cultivated plants or crops. So these are not planted and we don't even sometimes manage them. So what we do is we just protect them or we allow them to grow and then use them. So like this, there are many. And so they are allowed to grow because they have multiple purpose. When I say multiple purpose, it's they are not only food crops, sometimes they have medicinal values. That is why these plants will not be cultivated, but they will be allowed to grow in our agriculture land and it will be used for different purposes. So like this. And when we discussed with farmers about these plants, they say that all these plants are rich in nutrients and useful for overall health management. That is why they are cultivating, they are not cultivating, they are collecting it and preparing different kinds of food items, including what you call, as I told you, chamandi or sambar, like that, different this one will be, products will be made and it will be used. So thereby they will give you nutrient and also they may contribute directly or indirectly for our overall health management. And when we recorded all this information, we also thought that it is better to analyze their nutritional quality. So thereby we can give scientific base for our traditional knowledge and practices. So by analyzing the nutritional quality or nutrient available in all these plants, we found that some species are rich, are are having high value for different nutrients. For example, protein. When we studied about 27 species. Among them, some 4 species are what you call rich in protein. It's around 50 milligram per gram of leaf. So the same way, some are rich in fat, some are rich in crude fiber. So the minerals, tawara and pantavara, they are rich in minerals. And churuli and sambar chira, they are rich in calcium. And sambar chira is also rich in iron. So, and when we compare these values with our conventional vegetables, particularly leafy vegetables, like say for example, many leafy vegetables what we eat, cauliflower and other thing. No? So when compared to them, these are rich, sometimes more than what the other species are having. So that means values are comparable with or higher than that of several tropical leafy vegetables. So that means these species are rich in nutrient, and also we are not growing them. We are just allowing them to grow in our agriculture land and using them. And this should be continued. But that means this traditional knowledge and practice is having high scientific vigor or scientific base, and it should be continued. So I am very happy to inform that once we did this work in Kerala, even from other states, like particularly from Northeast India, many scientists have started collecting information on this tradition, on this what you call non-crop edible plants and then analyzing their nutritional quality. And this actually enriching our knowledge, how our traditional farmers are using many non-crop edible plants. And as I told you, bamboo is another system which I want to explain. And in Kerala, particularly in Palakkad district, bamboo is considered as a crop, not as a weed. And it is a component in our home garden systems. But as you know, many people say that bamboo is a bad species because it will have thorns and it may also compete with other plants. So that means it should not be planted in our agricultural land or in our near our home. So this is the general what you call notion nowadays with people. But our farmers, our traditional farmers, were managing bamboo in our home garden systems. How they were managing with all so many plants, how they were managing. And we recorded many traditional practices of managing bamboo and using bamboo in home garden agroforestry systems of Kerala, particularly from Palakkad district. What they do is they don't grow bamboo very close to home or in the center of their agricultural land in the home garden. They always grow bamboo in the corner, in a corner of the agricultural land or in the border of their agricultural land. This is because by growing them in a corner of home garden, you will have freedom of movement within the garden. That means the rest of the area can be used for different activities. Otherwise, if you have bamboo here, and particularly if this is thorny bamboo, then you may have several problems, like they may spread to other areas, they may damage other crops, and you may not move here and there because of bamboo. So best thing is to what you call grow them in a corner and then managing it. The rest of the area can be used for growing other plants. So that means more space will be available for growing other crops. And then another important traditional practice we recorded from bamboo growing home garden systems is they make a trench around bamboo. So leaving about 5 feet or 6 feet or even sometimes 10 feet, they make a trench around bamboo. And so as a result of this one, the roots of bamboo will not spread to other area. So that it will be restricted. And what they do is they make trench here and the soil will be mounded here. So that means that soil will give a required nutrient for bamboo to grow and also produce more number of columns. So this restricts the horizontal spread of bamboo roots and reduce the competition with other crops. Similarly, when you mound the area around bamboo with the soil collected from these trenches, that will stimulate production of new columns and improve soil fertility. So this is very important practice of managing bamboo in agroforest system, particularly home garden system. And usually this trench will not be allowed as such. They use even that area for a good purpose. That means this area will be used as a cow dung pit. So that means cow dung can be collected here. That means once it is after 1 year, it can be again taken and then you can fertilize your crop. So this way, the trench will also be used, and at the same time, you can also protect other crops from competition, root competition with bamboo. Hello. Yes. Then another important traditional practice is the tree-topping of columns. As you know, bamboo is very fast growing plant. That means within 2 months, it will reach its complete height, maybe 15 feet or 20 feet or 25, depending upon the species. And then there is no further height increment. Only slight girth increment and thickness improvement will be there. So And because of this one, what you call this bamboo top will give shade to other crops. That means there will be competition, light competition between bamboo and other crops. So how you can manage it? So what they do is they de-top this area. That means they cut the top top portion. That means after leaving about 10 feet or 12 feet, the rest of the tip portion will be cut. So this is because this tip portion is not very strong and you cannot use it for any purpose. But the bottom portion is very important as poles and other materials. So you can maintain that bottom portion and tip portion can be cut. So thereby competition, light competition can be reduced. You can reduce shade on other crops. And again, when you cut this tip portion, there will be stimulation for production of long axillary branches because of cessation of apical this is an apical portion. So you will get very lengthy branches and which can be harvested and used for fencing. So you can have two benefits by de-topping. One is you can reduce shade competition, shade for other crops, and also you will get lengthy and strong branches which can be used for fencing. So this is the traditional practice in our country, particularly in Kerala. And many people say you cannot grow anything under bamboo, but our farmers, not only our farmers, even about 2000 years back, Varaha Mihira's sister, she also told that you can grow certain crops, particularly what you call annual crops or short duration crops like ginger, turmeric, and mango ginger, kasturi manjal under bamboo. So because they will have less what you call they will not get much they will not get affected by bamboo. So you can, it's possible to have intercropping of bamboo and these crops. So because these plants will be cultivated on raised beds, so there is minimum or no root competition with the bamboo. And this, as I told you, these are all short duration crops. Within 6 or 7 months, you will get crops. You can harvest it by January, and in January you can go for other activities like pruning branches of bamboo for fencing materials like that. So what I'm telling, I mentioned here 5 traditional practices related to bamboo management in home garden agroforest systems or in our traditional agriculture system. And all these are having scientific base because we have done experiment in a farmer's field and we found that all these traditional practices are really scientifically valid. So what we can conclude based on this study, all these studies, is that means we have a wealth of traditional knowledge and practices for plant conservation, management, and utilization. Many of them are scientifically valid and still relevant. So there is a scope for research and innovation for improving traditional practices of biodiversity conservation and utilization. As I told you, many traditional practices need to be studied very systematically for their scientific rigor or scientific validity. And many may not be really what you call acceptable in the present day context. And again, there we need to intervene and change them to suit the present day condition or to suit present day cropping system. There is also need for building or supporting institutions like sacred groves to strengthen cultural heritage and biodiversity conservation. So I mentioned the importance of our sacred groves as a traditional practice of biodiversity conservation. So this has both cultural heritage and biodiversity conservation values. So many sacred groves are now getting affected due to various reasons. So what is important is we have to support them And also sometimes we have to rejuvenate many sacred groves because they are having several cultural and biodiversity conservation values. Then how we can do it? This is possible when all of us work together, because this is not the activity of a biologist or botanist alone. We have to various people from different disciplines, whether you are a social scientist or you are agriculture scientist or forestry person, or whatever field, so economics, so whatever field you are from, you can contribute for strengthening our traditional systems. So we have to work together, and then because each one, there is an opportunity for each of us to study each traditional systems and practices, and again understanding them and refining them. It is possible. From our direction, we can check, study them, and then we can give our what you call ideas, and so thereby we can strengthen our traditional systems and we can enrich them with new knowledge. So we have to work together. So our challenge before us is to develop a team to work together and establish linkages among workers from different disciplines. If you do like this, then certainly we can rejuvenate and re-strengthen our traditional systems and practices. So thank you very much. So this is a photo from Bioresource Nature Park at KFRA Subcenter Nilambur. Dr. Sriljit already mentioned. And so I request all of you to visit this place, because you will come across with several plant species, even of course a butterfly species in this garden, and many RAT species are also planted here. So that means you will know the richness of plant diversity in our country. So this is an ex situ conservation area. That means outside forest area we are conserving many rare endangered tree species. You can go there and see them. Each plant is labeled, so that means it is easy for you to understand their know their names and understand their uses. So thank you very much. If you have any question, I will be very happy to answer.